not many jobs you get a chance to take it, and then you're not evaluated for about 8 months. But and quite frankly, the thing I enjoy doing is what we're getting ready to do on Friday in St. Louis, which is go out and get a chance to compete against somebody. So it's been great to get acclimated around here, get a good feel for campus. It's been great to get a feel for the community, and also get into a house permanently and be able to settle there. It's a terrific environment. I think this is a hidden gem. You know, I've lived in 5 different places, and I love to fish and I love the outdoors, and so this area here is meets my needs in so many ways. And then the opportunity, I think, to build this program into something that I think has a chance to be incredibly special. And I think it has a chance because, A, we've got a terrific leader in Jerry who is willing to spend the kind of time and energy to build this thing across the board. And then when you think about where we're geographically located, I think it couldn't be placed more ideally in that regard. So
how different has it been building this program than at your other stops in the first year?
I don't know that it's really been a whole lot different to this point. I mean, you know, when I went to Bama, which is the most recent one, right? We were in a similar position. They'd been dead last in the SEC for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years, something like that, and so it was, you know, there were a lot of similar things going on. First of all, just being able to address, I think, the things that are important to us in terms of building people and the expectations that we have of student athletes were probably similar. I think there were some activities that were going on that were less than desirable in terms of helping them be the kind of student athlete that they were capable of being. And so in both situations, we've had to clean up some of that, and then be able to set a standard on a daily basis of what we expect in the practice gym and across this campus that reflects, I think, excellence. So to this point, I haven't noticed a whole lot of difference between that, even in the Tulsa stop, or if you go back to PC. PC didn't require nearly the building that either of the other two did, but you know, I think things are similar in that regard.
It'll be a challenging tournament. How important is it to get that first one though?
Well, I think being able to get off to a good start in the preseason is important. Period. You know, I think we're dealing with athletes, you know, some of which are, you know, somewhat damaged. You know, I mean, anytime you go through 2 seasons that you won 11 matches and things socially have been a little bit out of whack, you know, there's been some damage done there to some degree, and I think the ability to be able to get out and get off to a decent start, and I think we've created a schedule that is going to potentially allow some degree of success within it. I mean, it's not like we're sitting here playing all the top 25 teams in the country when you look at that preseason schedule, nor should we be playing them. And so I think we've got opportunities, if we approach things the right way, for us to begin to slowly put this thing on track. I mean, when you think about your responsibility to a league, and we've got a responsibility to the league, the Missouri Valley. I mean, we were picked second to last, which I guess is an improvement over last year. And preseason polls are, I mean, you know what dogs do to polls, so you know what the value of that is sometimes, right, in the preseason part of it. The reality is, you know, we want to make sure that when you look at the teams that are in the lower half of the league, or at least projected to be in the lower half of the league, when they approach things from a scheduling perspective, the league depends on them being able to schedule talent that's going to be able to allow them some degree of success, because that helps build the league RPI. And so we've tried to keep that in mind as we've sat and looked at that as well. And so that is, it's going to be important for us to get off to a good start, not only for ourselves, but to help this league out, which is it's a solid volleyball league. I mean, it took 5 teams to postseason play last year, 2 to the NCAA tournament and 3 to the NIVC. I don't think there's another league outside of a Power 5 that was able to do something like that. So we're looking forward to what I think that can ultimately, when we can think about building this program into one of the top teams in this that's challenging for a championship every year, then we're going to take this league and elevate it even more than what it has been.
Have you seen your club so far? I mean, I know you won't know until the lights go on officially for your first game or first match rather, but what have you seen out of your club practice so far?
Well, the effort level has continued to increase, and from January to this point, I think kids are playing hard. I think kids are engaged. They're paying attention and listening. I think I've got a good classroom right now, and I think we've learned a lot in this preseason, but even over the spring. We've got more depth in here than we had when I got here in January. We've got 2 outside hitters that are going to be starting for us that weren't on a roster last year, and both those kids I think are kids that can be 2 of the better outside hitters in this league. Alex Washington, who's a true freshman, I think has a chance in the next couple of years to challenge to be one of the best outside hitters in this league, if not maybe one of the candidate for player of the year. And then we've got Savannah Sheridan, who's a junior college kid that is 6'3" and long and has potential as she develops through the year. She's been away from the game for a year, and so we've seen drastic increases from her over the last 2 weeks, and would project that would carry through November. I think by November she's going to be a tough kid to reckon with. And so being able to have 2 outside hitters, I think when you look at, there were a lot of problems with this program as you look through the past season, one of which is they needed outside hitters that have the ability from time to time to terminate. You can't win at this level without having outside hitters. You can win being deficient in a lot of positions. Outside is not one of those, and so we feel like we've helped ourselves there. We feel like we've got more depth in every position. We think that if they can handle things the right way with that depth, that we can create an environment that really allows us to get better on a daily basis in the gym. And if everybody can put their feelings and desires aside at times and be committed to the group, then I think that we can be a lot better team in November, obviously, than where we're at right now, and I'm excited about that part of things.
As you probably noticed by now, Davies Gyms has rather unusual acoustics.
Yeah,
Do you like that? A lot of the coaches said, looking at it first, no, but when you play in it with 500, 600 people, it sounds like 6,000.
Yeah.
So do you like that?
Oh, absolutely, and I don't have problems with the acoustics myself. I kind of like it because my voice echoes in there, so I don't need a microphone or anything else. They can hear me all over the place, right? And so, but I like being in those environments. When Coach Kill and I visited when I first came here, I said, I don't want to leave Davies. I want to play in Davies. I'd like for us to be able to update Davies in a way that...
Here's what you do. You bring recruits into the arena and show them that, and they
Yeah.
assume that there'll be 6,000 people
Yeah.
there, and then you play Davies.
Well, and the beautiful thing about how things have changed recruiting-wise for us, they've slowed recruiting down so that now, we can't have contact with kids until their junior year anyways. And so, that's slowed everything down to the point where when we really are going to be doing the bulk of recruiting with them, they're going to be coming in here and they're going to come to a match in Davies, and we want them to see that environment take place. And quite frankly, I'm very blue collar with a lot of things and what I expect from players. And so, if their desires are all the fluff and everything else, then I'm not overly interested in those players anyways. I don't think you ultimately win with those kinds of players. I think you got to find the kids that, quite frankly, aren't interested in the huge press conferences and everything else. They just want the NLI down, sign it, and let's move on, right? And those are the kind of kids that I very much am interested in recruiting.
Anything else for Coach Allen?
Your players will be
Yeah, I think at least right now we're probably looking at about 10 kids that'll see time. You might be able to push that up 11 or 12 occasionally, but of those 16, there's going to be consistently somewhere between 4 and 6 that aren't going to see much time, and who knows what happens with that number. Just like any season right now, we've got a ton of possibilities, and we're going to go play this weekend, and I'm sure those possibilities are going to begin to shrink down just a little bit, based on performance and how people deal with anxiety and everything else. It's one thing to be in that gym and going at one another because we've got the same uniform on or the same practice gear on, but can they handle that when we stick something with a different color over there and somebody might be saying some things that through the net that might be less than desirable, and how you manage that, right?
those 10, how many are on the
Let's see, one, two. Well, Savannah, you would consider an upperclassman, even though she's new. And so you've got Savannah, you've got Emma, you've got Lindsay, you've got Lane, you got Rachel. That's going to be a junior. So probably five. You probably got half of them that are going to be upperclassmen, and so I don't know how much value that has. Normally you say upperclassmen on the floor, that has some value. I don't know how much value that has to us when those upperclassmen have won maybe 11 matches, in the last 2 years, right? So, but I think more than anything else, and why I like building is that, they're very receptive. I mean, when you're in a bad place, you're pretty receptive to someone telling you how to get out of that place, right? And so I think some of the toughest teams I've ever had to coach were teams that we came back off of 30 wins, and I had to coach them next year because, by God, they knew everything there was to know about how to get to 30 wins, right? But when you've only won six matches in the previous year, they're looking for somebody to tell them how to get 10, 15, 20 wins out of the season. So that's probably one of the things I really enjoy about building as well.
So you've got one match Friday and 2 Saturdays.
That's right. That's right.
Say halfway through your first Saturday match, what are you looking for? You've seen them once and win or lose. Halfway through the second one, I think it's St. Louis is your
Yeah.
first match.
Yeah.
And they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
What if one of us? What should we see that's going to make you feel good? What are you going to feel good?
I'd like to see the ball exchanged multiple times across the net, right? Which means that we're doing a good job of taking care of first ball contacts, second ball contacts, third ball contacts. You're seeing rallies extended. You're seeing people playing hard. You're seeing kids climbing into potentially stands for a ball that gets shanked out of it. I think you're seeing a group of players that come together after every dead ball and support one another, exchange information, carry themselves like a winner. I mean, I think those are the things that if you were sitting in the stands, that I'd prefer that you'd be able to see. But I think, if we can see that ball being exchanged multiple times, then I think you're going to see that we've made some improvements. And I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see a team that is going to compete harder and has more athleticism than what has been here in the past.
Okay, anything else?
Okay.
All right, Coach, you want to make an opening statement on SEMO, and then we'll take questions.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. We kind of already had one of these with talking a little bit about SEMO, but first, just I got a ton of respect for Coach Took and what this rivalry means, but just even him as a person. He coached me, and even though he's a defensive guy, but have a lot of great memories of Coach Tuke and what he's meant to me as I've come up, and our friendship has continued to grow, and nothing but with respect for him and Coach Saya, and it's always good to see those guys on the recruiting trail, and just have a great relationship with them, and they're always fun to compete against. So I'm looking forward to this week. I know we're ready to go play someone else, and we're at that point of the process that we got to trust our process. We got to trust our preparation and what we've believed in to get this team ready from the off season conditioning and new coaches hires and scheme and what we're going to do, and now we got to go and put the ball down and play, and I think that everybody in our building's looking forward to that, and so it should be a fun evening over at SEMO. I think that it's a good place to play. It creates a good college football atmosphere every time we went down there, and so I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to these next couple days of practices. We still need these practices and continue to dial in on the game plan and what we want to do, and we'll be ready to go Thursday.
No major injuries report, thank God.
Yeah, really pretty healthy going into the season. Knock on wood. As the season progresses, we'll have injuries that we have to deal with. But came out of training camp really healthy. Really, the only significant guy is Nick Tarana, who we were looking forward to really coming on there as having a really good spring as a backup linebacker. Will be out for the season. He had surgery last Monday, so he'll be out, but should be back for spring ball. So he redshirted last year, and I know was looking forward to playing this season, but a little adversity for him, and he'll rehab and get ready to go for next year.
So he'll be an outside linebacker.
Yeah, he was in the box playing Will, but yeah, so he's the linebacker.
Right guard, right tackle, Nick, what did those two guys show you to earn the starting spot out of a position you kind of battled until the end?
Yeah, and I think really, all four of those guys have to be ready to go, and we've talked about that. We've played 6 or 7 linemen before in a game, and those guys have to get going. But Calvin, I think, just kind of like in all the positions, graded it pretty. It was a tight competition, but overall throughout the camp, the consistency. I think that anybody that you have in that depth chart, the starter, has to be, those are the most consistent guys that you put out there. And I thought Bo continued as a redshirt freshman. This will be his first start, but consistently proved that he needed to be out there with the first guys, and that's who we're going with.
How do you manage your minutes or series as far as substituting for the line?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Olson does a good job with that. I mean, you're not going to play musical chairs and bring them in and out. You got to just have a good feel for that as they're going. And
is it an individual thing? Some guys can play 5 or 6, 7, 8 minutes, the whole quarter.
I mean, you should be able to play the entire game, but. We'll settle in on that. That's our starting offensive line right there. It's not like we were saying, hey, every other series or anything like that going into the game. We feel good about 8 or 9 of our offensive linemen that really competed to play. Brett Groves is a guy that was right there in the mix, and then he was out for about 4 practices there that kind of hurt his. But he's back healthy and can swing outside and inside and has a bright future here too. And so we feel good about our offensive line depth.
Bonasinga and Cox have certainly been real consistent for camp, but don't you need Burton out there?
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. I guess I'm looking at the 2 deep. I mean, you know how it is around here. I mean, we're going to play 6 receivers, and at the end of the game, their snaps are pretty much about the same. There's going to be some consistent guys that are in there, and 11 personnel, 12 personnel, in and out of a lot of different personnel groupings. So I don't look at those as who's starting and who's not starting. We don't have bring them in and say, hey, you didn't get the starting nod. I mean, it kind of depends on what play we're running, actually, who's in and who's out. So I would say those 6 guys across the board, any of them could be in there and start for us.
How different do you think they'll look? Their new running back apparently is a 6'2", 220 guy,
Mm-hmm.
not as fast as Terry.
Well, I think it was 352 rushing yards last year, but yeah, he was good. You know, he's a good runner and had some flashes last year. You know, obviously didn't get as many carries, but he's probably not as elite speed as Terry. But obviously, you know, from his size, is once he gets rolling, he's downhill and he's a good back. And so, you know, it's kind of like anything. I mean, like you know, Terry, but people graduate, and another guy's got to step up and be ready to go. And we've prepared for. And I'm sure that, you know, the other guy, they've got some speed guys, but he's going to be a bigger back that we got to tackle well. Bigger backs are tougher to tackle, to break tackles, and you see even the first week, the week 0 games, is tackling's an issue in college football, and especially week 1, and we can't let that be an excuse either. Talk to our team about that. There's really, you know, you listen to, you know, post game and talk about, well, it was week 1 and it was sloppy, and that's not an excuse. I mean, you got to go out and be ready to play, you know, clean, solid football week 1, because everything counts. And so tackling, we've got to be solid tacklers. We want to stop the run. We can't let guys break tackles, and he'll cause some problems with that. But we've got to trust our technique, and we got to be good tacklers on Thursday night.
Your defensive line, how's it shaping up this year?
Good. I mean, I like those guys. I mean, they need to have a chip on their shoulder. You know, whenever you give up a lot of rushing yards in a season like we did a year ago, I mean, you think of the front 7, the defensive line. They got to, you know, all those guys are back. We added Elijah Watson from as a transfer, but you know, a lot of those guys have been here, and they continue to get better and grow, and so we've got to play well at the defensive line. There's no question about that, and they know that, and they know my expectations for that group, because I think there's some talented players in there. You know, on the edge, Anthony Knighton has been around here, played a lot of football games, and so if we want to be a successful defense, you got to play well on the D line.
What about the new scheme that Coach Pitino's brought in?
Yeah, I mean, we're based out of a 4-down front, but you know, each coordinator has their different wrinkles, you know, of getting in and out of different fronts. You know, there's not a defensive out there that's just going to sit in one thing. So they've done a good job, and we've had all spring, we've had all summer, we've had all fall camp to get adjusted, and that's plenty of time, and we need to go out there and play well week 1, and I feel confident that we will.
It's important to have somebody wearing a different jersey across the line.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. I think you're ready, you know, however many, that's, you know, be 40 practices in that you, from spring until now, that you've went and hit the same color jersey. So that's what we do it for, is go out and play someone else, and so we'll get that opportunity Thursday.
You talked about your punt coverage unit. You know, how good you feel about that, and why is, you know, could you say why that's important? They have some good returners.
Yeah. I mean, punt is arguably one of the biggest plays in football, you know, as far as field position and just so many hidden yardage in that play. And so, you know, our punt coverage has to be, and we have a team that's built, in my opinion, to cover kicks. We should have a good kickoff team. If you want to have a good team, you better be good on coverage units. And you take pride in that and put an emphasis on that. You can tell a lot about a team when you put that on there, and Coach P and I get together and we talk about who we're playing. You throw on their kickoff film, you throw on their punt coverage film, you watch the effort, you watch the speed. You can tell a lot about a team and what kind of personality that team has when you watch coverage units. And we've talked a lot about that, and we'll have an opportunity, like I said, with all this stuff, you know, to go out on Thursday and prove that.
What has Stallworth done to move himself up to the number 1?
Consistency. You know, I said that it's on that for everybody that earned a starting spot that was kind of up for. It's consistent. You know, a lot of people can flash and come out and play well, but it's a course of time that we can trust you, and you can be consistent. You can be disciplined in the small things. It's not about making one big play and then 3 plays later you're making the same mistake that you've made time and time again. And Keontae has grown and gotten better and become consistent in every call and trusting him, and has really put together a good camp.
On my count, 15 of 22 of your too deep on defense are upperclass. That's way different. Was it last year or the year before? There was just a couple of seniors through the whole shooting match.
Yeah,
So
no.
you talk about scheme and coaching and everything, but these young men have done this before.
Right. Yeah, no, I think you can talk about scheme all you want. It comes down to those players going out there. We got to put them in position, but it's still going to come down to fundamentals. It's going to come down to blocking and tackling and catching, throwing accurate footballs. There's no tricks. The team that wins this game is not going to win it on trick plays or, we got to be ready for deceptives, and we always have them and things like that. But teams that consistently win championships do the fundamental things correct. When there's a tackle to be made, they make the tackle. When there's a block, whether it's on the perimeter in the box, and the box is blocked up right to hit a run, it's blocked up right and hit a run. And so it's the consistency in the little things. And so with experience, it's those things. So many times I think you watch some of those games and there's a lot of sloppy play early in the season, is because can you be locked in and focused for 3.5 hours? Last year the average game in the Missouri Valley was almost 3 hours and 20 minutes. That's the only time really. Practices aren't that long, where you're going to play 85 snaps in a row and kids lose focus. Well, when you're experienced, you understand what's coming. You've been in those situations and you continue to have that focus. And we've talked a lot about each play has a life of its own, and you got to reset in football every time, whether a team's tempo or you go back and get in a huddle. But you gotta refocus on every single play to be consistent. You do that for 3 hours and 20 minutes, and you're going to have a pretty good game. When you lose focus, you're out of place, you forget the down and distance, or you're not locked into the situation, that's where you can get caught.
What makes you think you can stop people this year?
We just got, like I said when I opened it, we got to trust our process. You got to trust your players. None of us coaches are going to go out there and stop anybody. It's going to be our guys that we've prepared and we've recruited and we've brought here and we've trained, and now you got to go out there and trust to play good sound defense. Win one-on-one matchups. Defensively, we have to get off those blocks. We have to make tackles. So I feel confident in our coaches and I feel confident in our players. So we got to go out there and do that. Each team's going to have some wrinkles. We've talked about it's college football, teams moving the football, and we've got to any time it's a brand new season is watching how we deal with adversity. I don't know if we've been the best at that in the last couple years, but adversity is coming. I promise you. I don't know what it is. I told them that. I don't know what it is going to be Thursday night, but it's not going to be too script. I promise you. First quarter, second quarter, something. Lightning delay, you don't know, and how we deal with that will dictate how well we are. And with experience and maturity, you usually handle those situations better.
And what have you seen out there since you named the starting quarterback?
Just same thing, just a consistent, confidence. I think knowing or not we know what's expected or what's coming in the day, and it's tough sometimes when you don't know how many reps you're going to get, or I'm in and I'm out and you can't get in a rhythm. So just dialing in now, we're more full blown in on a game plan and specific looks and what we think we're going to get, and what your checks are and what your protections are, and getting more reps, just a consistency and a confidence knowing that you're going to go out there.
What are the challenges that defense is going to pose to you, especially Paul being such a highly touted player?
Yeah, when you look at their team, they deserve to be ranked where they are, and same consistent coaching staff, quarterback, first team all conference quarterback, leader on defense back, specialists back. You know, the core of their team is all back and led by Zach. You know, he's not just the OVC player of the year, he's the national defensive player of the year, you know, and Swift's a good player, and their secondary's back, and I know 11's preseason All-American at corner, and 24's played for a long time. They got a lot of guys back. I think 10 of the 11 come back on defense, and so and they had a good job. Coach Sy does a good job with them. Like I said, I mean, they took it away from people better than anybody in the country last year. I think they were plus 26, which is unheard of. So there's no secret, and the key to this game is taking care of the football. And they're a team that's always played with high energy and effort and create some chaos, and that's why people turn it over. You know, they're an odd front structured defense, and you watch throughout the year, and teams are side protections wrong and free rushers coming and turning the ball over and creating some. They do a good job of believing what they believe in, and players play fast, but they thrived off taking the football away last year. Won them a lot of football games.
Sounds like that makes Stone's challenge even greater for his career.
Yeah, without a doubt, you know, and being consistent, and us putting them in good spots, you know. But there's going to be some things on his plate where, in the game, that he's got to make some good decisions. He's got to get us in some good plays. He's got to get us, and we talked about using the last several games that we got to watch this weekend is, that's for any quarterback, and my philosophy is don't try to do too much. You see guys, the kid from Miami or even Florida, and just in different times you try to do too much. It's just take what's there. It's kind of like a good score in basketball, man. Just let the game come to you, and those plays will come when they're supposed to come, and you just you hand it off 25 times in a row, then hand it off 25 times in a row, and team football, and we got to do a good job of like I said, trusting our schemes and going out there and executing.
In your process of forming the two deep, how's that done? Do you get an input on who's running back or something, or does each coach get their input on who this should be?
Well, I hope I have an input on it. I usually have an input on who's going to go out there. But like I said, to be honest with you, they wanted to put out a two deep. I mean, we know who goes out there with the ones and who's the twos and who's got to be ready to play. But that wasn't a big, let's sit around to announce this two deep. I mean, we've known who we announced the starting quarterback. But those other guys, they've all got to be ready to play. I mean, we're going to play in different personnel groupings and different packages of plays, and who's going to get the ball. That's what I mean. I mean, there's starters on different, personnel groupings, and who's in and who's out, and who's better at this play, who's better at this route. And so it kind of dictates on, what's your philosophy, what's your game plan, and who does what better.
So I would assume that Javon is consistency again that got him the backup job.
I mean, you'll see all those backs at different times in the game. All those guys will get a crack at it, and DJ's our starting running back, and those other guys got to be ready to play behind him.
We have replay for this game.
Yeah. But with all of that, it's just the replay angles on these games. It's tough when you go back and look at the even here, the amount of plays that are overturned and versus there's not a high vantage point down there. But yeah. Yeah.
Am I correct? They changed the targeting rule as far as they can overturn
Yeah.
one, or they can assign one after looking at it.
Yeah, they can go back, which is different, there's always some tweaks in the rules. The kickoff return and then double team is a little bit different, be the first time, but we've known about all those, even back in the spring, so adjusting to some of that, and all good rules for the game, in my opinion.
I just noticed that it really is a flip. You have 4 seniors in your two deep on offense. So they're young.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, DJ Davis, Jacob Marnin, those guys have been around here. You know, Ernest Dye, Landon's played as a true freshman. This is 4th year, and then so. But we've got some experienced guys that have played some football, and so haven't really paid much attention to what year they are. We've got a blend of experience and some young guys, just like you will on most teams. I would say that on our defense, there's a lot of guys that have played a lot of football here that are returning.
Will you expect your opponents to really have a watchful eye on their starting tight end?
Probably, yeah. I would say that he's easy to recognize. But yeah, I mean, just based off film of last year, I mean, he had a solid season, but Nigel's had to push to get better, and he's gotten better. But we usually play with a tight end in the game, and so. But yeah, I mean, Nigel's a matchup problem that we've got to again put him in position to do a good job and make plays.
Can you imagine him being targeted a half dozen times a game?
Yeah, I mean, you got to, each play has its intent of what you're designing it to do, and it's really based off of what the defense is doing or what we think, and so they could come out and do whatever. They're not going to come out and do everything the exact same. It's the first game. Part of being successful in the first game is, finding out what they're doing or what their game plan is, and you use those first few series and figure that out and try to adjust to it as much as you can. But yeah, Nigel, for our offense, Nigel needs to do a nice job, and we feel Jacob Garrett does a really good job, and Levi Mitchell has done a good job as well at that position too.
Okay, anything else for Coach Hill?
All
Thanks,
right,
Coach. Good luck.
appreciate it.